You might know Brett Gelman from the hit series Stranger Things, but activism has been his latest role. He's speaking out against anti-Semitism. Take a look.
Cowards who tell us we are violent, we are disgusting, we are inhuman, when all we have done is simply say that we have the right to live.
Brett joins us live to tell us about his recent trip to Israel and connecting with survivors of the ongoing conflict. Brett, welcome to DBL.
Brett, sorry, we want to clap.
Yeah, for sure.
There. It's a serious subject, so we were confused on
There's
whether.
a little hesitation clap, but we're glad you're here.
We are very glad you're here. Brett, you got engaged in Jerusalem last year. Mazel tov. I'm so happy for you. Congratulations. Great shot. We heard you'll be getting married in June, and I wanted to ask you, how did meeting your fiancée, Ari, I believe is her name, inspire you to start thinking differently about anti-Semitism? And I say this as a Jewish woman who's dealt on the brunt end of that.
Yeah, she really woke me up to ways in which anti-Semitism was very under the surface and not so under the surface. And I think that I had somewhat bought into this idea that we were full benefactors of white privilege, and was very blind to a lot of the anti-Semitism that was happening, and so she also educated me on what the actual situation in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict was.
So, Brett, why did you want to return to Israel to experience the conflict firsthand? I mean, I have my guesses,
Well, I didn't want to be an armchair expert on it. I wanted to make sure that if I was going to speak out, that I was fully educated on the subject, and that I was experiencing it firsthand. As an example, I'm very confused by how many opinions are constantly flying from people that don't know anything about Israel at all, or anything about Gaza at all, or anything about the situation, anything about the culture of Israel or the people. And so I really wanted to steep myself in that, and also bear witness to the horrible things that had happened. And also I have a lot of family and friends out there, and I wanted to give in-person support, as well as in-person support to a lot of survivors and hostage families, because
Good for you. Good for you. Really, hands-on. I appreciate that.
Well, we're glad you're here because you are in the unique position to tell us about the stories that you've heard from the survivors. So do you have any that you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, I saw the worst things that I had ever seen and heard the worst stories I'd ever heard. I went to Kibbutz Be'eri, I went to Kibbutz Kfar Aza, I went to a Moshav, which is very similar to a kibbutz. I mean, it's more similar now than it was in the past. It's basically a small village called Nativ Sarah, all of these on the Gaza border. And the devastation, you can't, I can't even describe. I mean, we've all seen a lot of the footage, and it was really horrible. I also met with survivors of the Nova Festival and families whose family members are being held hostage. But I will say that, yeah, there was a story from Nativ Sarah that I don't think people are aware of, that, it was very much this normal thing. It's become that, up until October 7th, Israelis have become very conditioned to constantly being under threat. And one of the things that would happen to Nativ Sarah is Hamas would send these balloons over the border that were strapped with explosives that would be Hello Kitty balloons or happy birthday balloons to lure children. And I was not aware of that story. And I'm aware of the rockets, I'm aware of attacks coming out of the West Bank, but I was never aware that children's balloons were being sent to these, and we have to understand, these are the most peaceful communities, the most leftist communities who want peace with the Palestinians.
What do you think the answer is then? Can I ask you that as someone that's been there? Because I look at the footage and I have so much empathy for my husband's Israeli. He has family in Israel. I also have so much empathy for the children in Gaza. The numbers are just increasing. What do you think needs to change?
I think that the hostages need to be brought home, and I think that Hamas needs to be removed
Right.
as the entity that governs Gaza. I don't think that they are, not only are they not good for the Israelis, they are oppressing their own people. That one of the things that's so frustrating when we keep hearing about the bombings, other than the horrible reality of them and that innocent Gazans are dying, is that this is not at all being put on Hamas. Not even, it's not even also being put on Hamas, the responsibility of this, that they are keeping their own people. They are setting up military bases in schools and hospitals and not allowing their people to leave. There are over 200,000 displaced Israelis right now who were evacuated from not only the places that were attacked in the south, but also communities that are being attacked in the north by Hezbollah. And what Israel did as a democratic government was take their people out of harm's way. And so this is what Hamas should have been doing in the midst of this war if they were going to start a war with Israel. And look, I think that there needs to be a two-state solution.
Right.
I think Hamas needs to be removed. I also think that there needs to be a new government of Israel.
Well said.
And I think there needs to be a new government of the West Bank and Gaza, and these two entities can come together and finally form a peaceful coexistence.
Wonderfully said, Brett. I wish we could have you on longer. I think you just hit the nail on the head on the very end of that. So we appreciate you.